Step into a world of magic and limitless possibilities with me, your host, Katie Soul. I'm not just your average podcaster. I'm a former Fortune 100 exec who dared to escape the rat race and embark on my own mystical journey. Together, we'll discover that a mystical life is not something you stumble upon. It's a life you consciously create. Join me as we explore inspiring stories of extraordinary souls who fearlessly pursued their dreams and unlocked their inner radiance. Welcome to my world, where magic awaits and your light shines bright. Hello, I am your host, Katie Soul, and I am so delighted to be here with you. Today, I wanted to share a really special offer that we have only for our podcast listeners as a really special thank you for being with us from the beginning of this podcasting journey. I am offering to all our podcast listeners a 30% discount on Soul School. All of the ways that you can join Soul School, we'll put in the show notes. But in the meantime, go to katiesoul.com and you'll find the link to Soul School. The code will be podcast, and we'll put that in the show notes too. And this is special just for you, so don't share it too widely. And we hope that you'll join us in the Soul School journey. All right, without further ado, I am so delighted and energized to greet our beautiful guest today, Jeanne Street. She is glowing. I am looking at her now, and I am not going to spoil all the excitement. I will let her introduce herself to you. Welcome, Jeanne.
Thank you, Katie. It's so wonderful to be here. I've been looking forward to this conversation and just excited to be in your energy because it's so glowy too and so uplifting. And thank you for the introduction. I am a God-based medium, and I use my gift of being able to see and communicate with departed loved ones, angels, and celestial beings in order to help people navigate their sticky, messy, uncomfortableness.
Don't we all know that sticky, messy uncomfortableness?
Yes.
Okay. Before we dive in, you're going to take us through a special practice today that's going to drop us out of the mind where all the fears and worries and to-do lists reside. I like to call it the human self. And into the heart where our divine self resides, that real God-centered heart space. So I'm going to hand it over to you to share with us a little practice this morning.
I love this practice for coming in and recognizing what is actually ours and what is someone else's. So when you're energy sensitive, this is a perfect tool to work with. So I'm going to invite everyone to go ahead and just, if you can, if you're not driving or doing any big machinery, if you can close your eyes and just come into the moment. And if you can place your feet on the ground just to take a breath into the soles of your feet, letting that marinate. Letting that inner eyesight start to take on the connection of seeing now through your heart center. You feel yourself kind of coming in and pouring all into that heart center. And allow all your senses to come on board right here in the heart center, just recognizing what you might see, what you might hear. What do you smell? Maybe taking a swallow, what you taste. What do you feel? And then what do you know? Leaning back into our senses and staying in that heart center. Let's stay here while we have this beautiful conversation, Katie and I.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I feel so deeply centered now. And I just transitioned from a call with 10 or 12 really high powered female executives in the retail space, CEOs,
Mm,
founders, C suite. And it was such an energy that I don't find myself in so often anymore. And it really brought me back to a former version of myself. And in that rat race, that, oh my gosh, I'm buzzing all over the place. There's so much to do. Everything's urgent. And I felt this anxiety rise up in my body just being on this call, even knowing I was in a different space. And what you've just revealed to me is what was really coming up was energy that wasn't mine, that
mm.
I was taking on in that moment. So thank you for reflecting that back to me and for this very beautiful shift in energy for all of us.
And it can be so simple as just a hot second to call your parts in that were in that conversation, that where you were this morning, when you were parenting, when you were nurturing, calling yourself in to be in this moment. And maybe our listeners today can do that as well, like just allowing themselves to be present even if they're driving. Like, where are you in the car? What does the seat feel like? Feel your feet
Mhm.
on that surface, and just using our senses, let us tap into our own feelings and emotions.
Beautiful. I love
Mm,
it.
so
Mm,
good. So
so
yummy.
good. All right. Well, let's dive in and go back to the little you. And when were you first aware of your really unique gifts coming online? And unique in that, in many ways, your gifts are not unique. We all have this inside of us, these abilities, but not all of us have them turned on. So tell us, at what age do you remember these abilities really being present and turned on and active in your life that you could communicate with the other side?
So, as a little girl, very little, I always knew there was something more. And it was when I was 4 that I could actually understand, oh, this isn't normal. I saw my departed grandmother. My mom had lost her mom, and we had moved from my dad bought my mom a farmhouse to cheer her up. And that was the love that he has for my mom. So beautiful. And and so we went to this house, and my mom said, "Go find your rooms." And there were 3 of us. I'm not sure how old my youngest brother was at the time. And my mom, I think, was pregnant with my brother Paul. So we went and tried to find our rooms, and I saw my room. I saw my grandmother, and she pointed to this little, like, old fashioned powder dust thing. Um, and I was like, okay. And from that point on, I was really open and I was really seeing. And I lived in a lot of, like, not understanding because I wasn't able to communicate and put the words to what was happening. And I
Mm,
would spend a lot of times having nightmares and, running to my sister or my parents and saying, I have people in my room. And
mm,
of course, it probably sounded like I was having bad dreams because I didn't have that full language to be like, well, I'm communicating with them. So I just learned this thing of, like, revolving door. I shut it off. I turned off the sight, but I always had the feeling and all of my other senses on board. And so I would suck my thumb and I would soothe myself and I would go to sleep like, get away from me. But I was also able to see in church, to see Jesus, to see the Holy Mother, to see the angels, and to have that experience and know when to lean in when people needed a gentle hand touch or a handmade card. And so I was always doing what I'll say God work. Yeah.
amazing. And when in your life did that really transition into doing it in a professional way?
So I think we all have our journeys in life to go through. Obviously,
We
some
do.
some teaching, some type of actual physical school, some sort of like spiritual school that we aren't maybe all recognize. So my schooling both in the physical world and then in the spiritual world looked like um, having a hard childhood, having a lot of difficulties in relationships and then in school and in learning. So I moved out when I was 20 because I had gotten married to my high school sweetheart. I was done. I was needing to be in my own little nest. And so I was very busy from that point on, having a family. My husband and I had our first child, just 9 months later. And then we had a second. And then everything just moved and moved and moved. So I was ignoring my gift. I was still like doing things that God would lead me to, but I was doing them in a very messy, unaligned way.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
and then one day, all of a sudden, when my kids had 4 children and we had done foster care, all of a sudden I started to have this space where it was a little bit more open. I wasn't as like super busy with the kids. And I had a little shoe store and I started to have experiences again of seeing spirit, of tapping in. And I actually had people coming into the store and asking me if I did readings. And I was like, no. And so I just said, I have to figure this out. This isn't normal. I've got to figure this out. So I started to lean in and ask for help, ask for where God wanted me to go with this. And the first place I went was to my priest, and I started talking to
Mhm.
him. I was raised Catholic, and I was really wanting to be in alignment with making sure I was doing it right. That good girl thing.
Yep.
And
Mhm.
and I ended up reading the priest. Like I ended up like his friend who had died of suicide came through, and his like all of these people came for him, and the Holy Mother was around him, and he was like in awe, and he said, "Well,
Mm.
this isn't a bad thing. This is actually really beautiful." And so he kind of explained to me how the church works that with people like me that have holy experiences. And then he actually sent families to me that were losing their faith, were moving away from God because of the tragedies and the losses they had in their life. And that's literally how it started.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy moly. That is so beautiful. And then when you created this space in your life, or you suddenly had space in your life, this is when you were able to hear that voice of the divine more strongly, to see more clearly. So let's talk for a minute about creating space to tap into these gifts, because I'm a big believer that we do need to release some things. And sometimes that comes with growing. Sometimes it's a natural release. Our kids get older, we find ourselves in a different phase of life. And sometimes it's a more conscious releasing. I
Right.
talk about it as shedding the shit in one of my courses in soul school.
Yes.
Um, and while your release was more a natural one, what did that
I'm leaving
space—
out the messy parts, but not really
Oh,
natural. I
okay,
I think I
well,
want to
tell
be
us
on.
about it then.
Let's be honest, right? We resist change, all
Mhm.
of us.
We
It's a
do,
human it's
we
human
do.
nature because we
Yeah.
teach ourselves to be either safe in an area by making our like protecting ourselves or guarding ourselves or pushing away and staying in that ego thought. So
Mhm.
it does take a lot to pay attention to, are we resisting and what does that look like? And when you're very busy in a trauma-based body that's been unhealed, that hasn't been regulated, you're more apt to be defensive and forceful. And what I did was be very busy. I was so flippin' busy. I went from one event to the next event. I could do it all. I was the mom of 4 with the big suburban, and I could do foster care, and I could volunteer, and I could run Girl Scouts, and I could make a meal to feed 20. I could
Mhm.
do it all. And that comes with a depletion
It sure
because
does. I've
you're
been
you're running from yourself. You're
there.
you're
Mhm.
proving who you are to yourself, and you're always ending up empty
Yeah.
because there's not approval there. There's not a acceptance there. And so
Mm.
in that stage of my life, when some of my guard was down in this space of my shoe store, was I was becoming a little bit vulnerable because
Mm.
the shoe store was not doing great. The finances weren't great because I opened right before that big crash in 2008. And so the
Mhm.
economy crashed, having $30,000 of shoe debt, like of it was a lot. And so I had to find space to be still. And so my husband and I had this ability because of his beautiful work in this world to go away. And for a couple weeks, we would go to Turks and Caicos and I would float and I would literally float in the ocean. It was healing and it's still the most magical waters I've ever been in. And I would let my body just go. And that's when I would hear God. That's when I would receive. And it was in that float, in that place where I wasn't resisting what he was saying, which was close the shoe store. Close the shoe store. I want you to write that book. Close your shoe store. I want you to work with people. I'll show you the way. And it made no sense. It made no sense to anybody around me, to the people that were working for me when I said, I have to close. And I had to do it. Like I did it. I came back, I cleaned up, and I would take action upon those times when I was in solace. And it doesn't look to the outside world like it makes sense, but then it does. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, totally. I've certainly had my share of those
Mm,
moments too. I call it the feather, the whisper, and the brick. So the divine speaks to us like this feather brushing us by, and then it comes as a whisper. And when we really don't listen, it comes crashing down as lots
yes.
of bricks.
And that's just
And
more learning, right? We
it
can
is, it's
choose the
all
hard
learning.
way and it's
We
not
can choose
bad.
that.
That
No,
I had to
although
learn that it wasn't bad.
it's not bad. It's a
Right.
way. It's a path.
It's a
There's
way.
no right or wrong. It's
Right.
just lots of right paths that you get to choose.
Yes.
Personally, I am in a stage now where I'm listening to the feathers and the whispers.
Yes. And
And
you don't know that until you realize what the bricks are, until you
totally,
understand. Once you recognize those weightedness and that resistance and that's causing more pain in your life,
totally.
that's the miracle. That's when the light of God comes through and fills
Mhm.
in the cracks of where you feel like you're broken.
Whew. Yes. It happened to me at the turn of this year. I went to Egypt at
Mm.
the beginning of 2023. And I left corporate America probably about 6 months prior. I'd built an online marketplace, products, classes, services, and was hiding behind this business that I built. I wasn't involved in it in a front facing way. I was, behind the scenes of this business. I went to Egypt, and what I heard so clearly was, Katie, this was your Atlantean business. It was the best that
Mm.
you could do at the time. It was your bridge business. It was what you knew to do out of corporate. It was very techie. It was cool. It was savvy. It was smart. And you have to let it go because now,
And bye. Yeah.
and goodbye 6 months
And
later.
all that work.
Um,
Yes.
oh,
Mm.
and it's time to build your Lumerian business, this really love
Mm.
based business where you are front facing, where you're sharing your wisdom with the world and bringing others along on that journey, but in a really different way, like through the medium of podcasting. This wasn't in my plans in the start of the year, and it just sort of swooped in, and here we are recording many podcasts in now, and it's such a delight to share in this way where we're having this co-creation together, and I'm so delighted to do it with you.
I love that, reminder of we make a plan and God laughs. That little and then when we pick up the yes for like the podcast, and then you just had no idea like what it would bring to your world and to others. And then it just eventually just goes into a different storyline. Like that's how it was with the book when God said, write
Yeah.
a book. And I was like, I barely graduated. What are you talking about? I'm having a full on blown, like, what the hell are you talking about? Like conversation, right? I can't do that. I didn't go to college and write the book, just the same words over and over and over. And I was like, dang it.
Mm.
Fine, 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 Leo me, fine, fine. I'll write the book. I'll show you.
Oh. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your book.
So I actually have two books and they both have companion journals. The first book I wrote it started in 2013 and finished in 2016. So it was, took a little bit of like pulling it out because it was first like a workshop that I would teach, and because that felt safe to me. And so I did it in layers because that's how my brain worked. It was like, okay, well, I'll just do this and I'll teach this class. So I called it my Goddess Boot Camp. And I went to my local studios. I had a friend who had a workout studio, and I invite women there and I lead them in meditations and do this healing work. And then from there, it turned into the book, and I started filling in the stories and then launched that in 2016. So that's called The Goddess You, 12 Principles for Living in Your Soul Alignment. And the second book is called Believe Angels Don't Lie. And both have beautiful companion journals and exercises and ways to tap into the uniqueness that makes us individual, because like you said, we all do have gifts and not everyone is meant to look the same and use their gifts in the same manner. So you
Totally.
might have a gift of communicating with heaven and you might not be called to use it openly, maybe through another medium, such as maybe mm, I have a woman who's a preacher and she uses her gift that way. She runs a church, and that's how she just channels through that. Lots of healers come through my program because they have a message. And so it just depends on that call for you.
So beautiful. I
Mm.
want to pivot for a minute and talk about this great love that you have with your husband. And
Mhm.
I would love for you to just share what that journey has been like for the two of you through the different stages that you've
Mhm.
gone through, and how have you maintained this strong, beautiful, passionate love?
I love that thank you for asking this first off, because literally I've been thinking it's been coming in like to share our story.
Oh,
Um,
you've been very present for me as we've been talking.
and I love this. And so we're celebrating 38 years of marriage this month.
Mm. Yay.
I was a ripe old my birthday's at the end of this week. So I just turned 20 when we got married, 2 weeks
Oh.
later. So I was a child bride. It was so young. And I was wise in many ways. When I met him in high school, I fought it. I did not want to go out with him. I was really good friends with him. He was dating a friend of mine. That's a whole story. But I would try to fix him up with my other friends. In high
Mm.
school, it seemed such a long time. So September, I met him, and by February, I was going out with him. But it seemed like years that I was avoiding going out
Oh,
with him.
I bet.
High school time. Um,
Totally.
I'll have to say, like the first year of our marriage was a shit show.
Mm.
We came from our own brokenness, our own places of messy, and both equally wanting to help the other, but didn't see the light in themselves at all. So we entered this marriage. I got pregnant. He did drugs. He was drinking, and it blew up. So
Mm.
I had to, shake it up and say, my mom was like, you can't stay there. So I'm
Mm.
like, okay, you have to get help. It was really hard
Mm.
to move back home. Once I had moved out, it felt like
I
a
bet.
failure. I felt many things.
Mm.
To leave our apartment with my baby,
Mm.
with our daughter, and he went to rehab. And then we came back together and we picked up the pieces, and he started working and he started doing the things, and we worked really hard. Um, we made lots of mistakes. I had my car repossessed, my power turned off. I mean, we went through everything. So when it came to the point of when he bought the business from my dad had a meat distribution company, and Brian worked there. After years and years and years of working there, and just proving himself as a human, uh, worthy enough to do that, he was able to buy the business, and I felt so fortunate that we had made it through a war. That's what it felt like to me. We had our fourth child. We had we'd made it through. We were going to buy a new house. And I was like, we have to give back. And that's when we stepped into foster care. And I started to care for other people's children so they could get their shit together, so they could do better too. And, we just went on these roller coasters of falling apart and coming back in, and, you know, holding each other and not holding each other. And I think what makes our relationship so strong is the willingness to
Mm,
hold the marriage as sacred. Like, I can
mm,
be angry, but I'm in love. I
mm,
can hate what you're doing, but I'm in love with you.
mm.
And that's a deep core knowing.
Yeah.
And if I hold space for him to do better by me doing better and not waiting for him to do better and not projecting my pain onto him, then I feel like that's how our marriage has really held and taught others to kind of be like in awe of that, because it really is an awe thing.
Mm. It really is. And I've had the pleasure of witnessing the two of you together, and your love just emanates from both of you. And he really stands steady at your back in many
Yes.
ways. And it's very beautiful to witness the groundedness that you have in your relationship, and to know that it's a journey, and to know it
Mm,
took work, and to know that you held that love sacred
mhm.
while things were challenging.
That statement people will say, like, you have to fight for it. I didn't ever
Mhm.
feel like I had to fight to love Brian, but I
Mhm.
felt that I made a commitment, and the commitment was worth the fight.
Ooh.
The commitment was worth the hold and the circling back. And and I'm just speaking for me, like when I was in trouble with how I was feeling, I would turn to God. I would speak it out. I would get it out of me, because, right, what does the devil want? He wants to trick us. He wants to
Mhm.
confuse and intercede pain and fear and yuck, so that we don't have love, that love isn't alive. So even if you leave a relationship, I am a believer that you can do it in a place of respect and love, of
Mm.
compassion, that it doesn't have to be mudslinging.
No, no. And it's interesting
Mm,
because, having having been in a relationship to not being in a relationship, there's a way in which society wants you to have this, um, challenge when you leave a relationship, and it
mm,
doesn't have to be that way. I talk to
right,
clients about this who are leaving relationships. It's about consciously creating what you want that
right.
new relationship to look like. And while society may point you in the direction of animosity and fighting, it doesn't have to be that way. And certainly, I don't think it's the best way to co parent. You want to co parent as friends. You chose to have children together. You chose this journey for various reasons. And why not do it from a point of friendship? And you might have disagreements with another. But I think it's similar to a marriage in many ways when you're co parenting. Like you
Mhm,
said, you hold that co parenting role as sacred. And while there might be pieces that you disagree with or are challenged with, you still know that that co parenting is sacred and important and of value to maintain for the greater whole.
right. And sometimes, and because we have to own our 50%, right? We can never change that other person, or want them to be the version of us that we are expecting. Rather, this is how we learn to heal the parts of us that are broken, is maybe being a little bit more reflective and not so egoic. Like, well, that's pissing me off. Well, let me dive in. Why is that? Why is that making me angry? What is firing in me? And 9 times out of 10, it's nothing about that person. 9 times out of 10, it's actually about you. It's about something
Totally.
that hasn't healed, something you brought into the
Oh,
space from your past, and they're just mirroring it to you. And so, Brian is a great caregiver. He is a devoted, loving, genuine, generous. He's so generous, with all parts of him. Like, he's easy to love.
yeah.
It's just easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like you said, it really is us. I used
I'm
to,
getting all emotional.
oh, well,
Mm,
we'll have to dive into the new moon energy too as we're
right.
recording this. So it's interesting, and I'll share just a reflection that's been present for me is I had this theory that I wanted my ex-husband to be a king, not in a relationship way, but be a co-parent king. And I had a revelation that, oh, I need to see him as the king that he is. And sometimes we really do just need to come back to ourselves and our own inner knowing, our own inner work. And all of this healing ultimately comes back to being an inside job as much as we may want to play into that victim consciousness. It's a really low vibration state to be in. And when we move through the different levels of consciousness, we start to go through that, okay, I can do it this way. I take accountability. I'm no longer the victim, to finally getting to the stage where you're just in this place of awe,
Mm.
and that really there is no separation between you and another, between you and the plan, between you and the creator. It is this divine oneness. So tell us about your journey through the stages of consciousness and where you find yourself today.
So that's great. I love that. The stages of consciousness is, again, like, I think it's very much linked to our nervous system, to if we are in a regulation with our
Mm,
soul. And
mm,
when we are dysregulated, it is the journey through our life, right? The things that we've come in to experience, the soul contract. It's not punishment, it's not pain, and it's not even the thing we think it is. But when we can come into that space of being, and this is just how I found myself, of being curious of, well,
mm.
can I stay present in my body? Like, when I disassociate, what's happening? Like, I start to ask and be curious. And especially if I can get to the mirror, that's a really great thing. If anybody's had a lot of big events in their life that have created that instability where they fly out, um, being in the mirror and breathing, and then getting into the soles of your feet, tapping, like, coming in, all of a sudden you can talk to yourself and you can hear yourself, rather than the old voice and the old teachings. Now you can repattern and reaffirm and let that central nervous system know, I'm safe. I'm the adult version. I'm safe. And so we come in with the new conversation, because it's the energy that we put out that creates your husband, your ex-husband, to be the king. It's not the words, or it's not even the thought. It's the frequency. It's the central nervous system gives that off. So it has to be um, a feeling, a full embodiment of it,
Mm,
because we can't make it up. Like, energy sensitive people know this. Like, you can't fake it. Like, it's a
mm.
conscious decision to be in the energy that you want to be in. So I made a conscious decision. I would use this gift. I would stop being annoyed with people asking me if I could do readings, and I would actually do readings. I would actually put it to work. And it led me to the next door. And that next door led me to the next door. And it's just like one at a time. You can't, like in the beginning, I think I wanted it all. Like just you want the full kit and caboodle, right? No, that's not how it works. You have to go through one space at a time. You have to heal one thing at a time. You have to
Mm.
feel one thing at a time. And if you think you can micromanage or force, God's like, right, you make that plan. Silly girl. Silly girl. Tricks are for kids, right?
Totally.
It's gotta be um it's gonna be in waves. And then the new moon, what we
Yeah.
were talking about that came on, when we come into a phase of a new moon and we're in a healing like that
Mm.
phoenix rising thing, which happens to seem like minute by minute when you're in that like massive upheaval, like what you know is you you're burning up the old,
Mm.
releasing it, and you're loving it, and then you're coming back. And
Yeah.
you're flying free, and there's no time limit. So maybe it's a day, maybe it's 10 minutes, maybe then you went into it in another second. And now you're burned back up again, and then you come back in, and it's a continuum. The new moon is about that, and then there's peace, and then there's a stillness, and then it's like the calming of the waters, and we're just in a wave now, like, and instead of fighting it, can you move with it? That's to me how we
Mm.
move with opening our gifts and being in that consciousness.
Mm. Beautiful. So many people arrive at your doorstep in different ways. Some are very advanced healers themselves, and some might just come to your doorstep through a synchronicity. And your clients have such a range of where they've been and their journeys. Can you share a little bit about when people come to your doorstep, the ways that they can engage with you and work with you, and what's right based on sort of where they're at in their own personal journey?
Yes, and that's so beautifully said. So I feel like people come in for private readings, for one-on-one time when they have grief and they want to go further. They want to know how to navigate. They're ready to hear what God has for them, and yeah, that will be like they don't wanna do in a group. They know that need the sacredness of themselves. They're ready to
Mm.
hold themselves in that space. And so those are the readings that, they're really special.
Mm.
They're really incredible. And I also the people that are ready to do some healing work because I'll do frequency work. I'm able to go into the auric field. So healing
Mm.
sessions can also come into play with those one-on-one experiences. And then I have people that are want to come together with community because
Mm.
community is a beautiful place to heal because once
Mm.
we're in flow with each other, then we can see around corners for other people and we can also reflect, oh, that's interesting. I have that same thing. So we commune together. And this is really how God said, like, you're not supposed to do this on your own. Like, even though I had two animals, like two by two, like we're supposed to do it in community. We're supposed to be around others. And
Totally.
so those communities look like, my little simplistic one would be my soul shine group, a way to come in and
Mm.
receive. And that's a receiving energy. Like you
Mm.
want to show up, you don't have to really do any work, and you're receiving. And it's such a beautiful community. And
Mm.
then my mastery, which is from my angel healer program, the mastery is for women who really are already leading. They're already leading ladies of their life. They know they have an idea of their gift. They either are using it and they're ready to take it to the next level and to go a little further than maybe where they had gone before. And really importantly, we use the God-based method for connecting and communing with heaven. So we don't push past where God brings us just because we have psychic abilities. We learn to resource and to really um, come in and take all of the juiciness of the message and the tones and amplify them with our light, amplify them with our energy.
Mm.
Mm.
Beautiful. Could you share with us today, for everyone listening, for our beautiful listeners that are taking time to tune in and are here for a reason? Can you share what messages are coming through in this moment that will
Mm.
ignite and enliven those listening?
Yeah, let's just take a minute, and if you can put your hand on your heart and on your belly, and maybe taking a breath in and out. Mm. So the Holy Mother steps forward for me in this moment to come in with peace,
Mm,
a peace of, I love this. Peace is grace, peace is love, peace is joy, she says.
mm,
Peace is free. There is nothing that is needed, there is nothing that is taken, there is no exchange. Peace be with you. Mm, peace. Beautiful. Mm, I love that so much.
mm.
A personal reflection on that is that we get busy doing, we get really busy in
Yeah.
the movement of life that we might deflect peace. So
Mm,
maybe it's just for this moment, just
mm,
for this moment, we can breathe into that peace. And again, maybe you can run through your senses to see, like, what do you see now?
mm,
What do you see? What do you hear?
mm,
What do you smell?
mm,
Taste? What do you feel?
mm.
And what do you know?
Absolutely.
Mm,
Divine. What
mm,
resonated for me was that peace is free
mm,
and that peace can be found in any moment. So peace is always available to us, and it takes slowing down
mm.
to feel and experience and embody the frequency of peace.
Just like even an acceptance too, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes we're not in agreement. Sometimes we're in
Mm.
agreement with chaos. So what
Yeah.
would it be like in this moment? Ooh, this is so good. Like,
Mm.
guys, if you feel this, put it in the comment section. Like, does it feel in the hot second to be in agreement for peace?
Yeah.
Oh,
Ooh.
oof.
And to be okay with peace. When we live in states of chaos, you can feed off of that chaos. You can be fueled by that chaos. And what would it feel like to be fueled by peace? And in order to be fueled by peace, we have to sit chaos down.
Mm,
And that might feel
a little
different
uncomfortable.
and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it means slowing down, which has really been a thread throughout our whole conversation. In the beginning, you and I both had the experience of living a life where we're going, 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 which leads to burnout, exhaustion, numbing out your feelings. For me, I physically went numb when I was in that stage of my life. And just want to beam love back to those versions of ourselves. And for
Mm,
everyone listening, send some love back to that version of yourself. And if you're in that state now, can you send some love to you, to your heart? Can you hold your hands over your heart
mm,
and receive? And if you can't come to one of Jeannie's receiving circles, that
mm,
sounds like the perfect place to land. If Because sometimes we are so depleted that we cannot receive, and we have to learn
Mm,
how to receive. Receiving is an art. It may sound easy, but it can be challenging for many people who
seriously.
have
Yeah.
lived this life of being an overgiver. And when you're an overgiver, learning how to receive, it's a rewiring of your circuitry. Ah,
Yeah. It's giving yourself a permission slip to just take a little space and realize that your schedule can afford you to take a break. Your life actually is calling for it.
mm,
It really is. And then all of a sudden, that's when abundance comes in, right?
mm.
It can't come into a crowded space.
No, it really can't. I was just reading, I am in the process of moving into the publishing phase, or dreaming into the publishing phase of my own book. And
Mm,
I just was looking at it yesterday, and this line came up, and it was about this time in my life where I was living from retreat to retreat.
mhm, mm,
And that was my survival mechanism. I'd go on a beautiful spiritual retreat, and it would take me the first half to calm my nervous system and come into my body. And by the end, I would be in a good place. And then I'd go back into the rat race of the life I was living. And I'm not saying that corporate life has to be a rat race. I believe there's ways to be in a corporation and to fill your soul. And that's why my biggest passion in the world is about raising the consciousness of leaders and getting into more corporate settings where I can have an impact in those settings, because there is a better way. And we can't just say, oh, we shut down all the corporations and go be an entrepreneur. That's a path for some of us. But there needs to be light workers in these corporate spaces, and they need to feel safe to shine and to be who they are in those spaces. And in order to do that, it requires a level of education and movement to creating more conscious organizations.
I
And
love this. It's also an agreement with your soul contract, right? You came in with the contract of going and being in those spaces to have the experiences you had, so
mm,
that as you were brought to that space of being cracked open, the light worker came forward and the old persona left. Your soul is on this journey, right? And so what seems is like what's broken, you noticed the brokenness. And that is the journey of the light workers, right? You you can then reflect and do your work. And that's why it's so unique to each of us, because on our journey, we had the experience. It didn't look good. So Joseph Campbell, right? It's it's so mountain and valley and ditch. It doesn't look good. It doesn't feel good, but we won't leave anybody behind, because a healer isn't about leaving others behind. But the
no,
healer's journey isn't about
mm,
saving them. It's about
no,
leading them. And
totally.
you can't lead until you heal the need to save. And
Yeah.
that's what you were doing at your retreats. That's what you were coming in. You can't come all in
Totally.
at once. You have to come in piece by piece,
Yeah.
piece
And
by
when you
piece.
look back on it, it all makes so much sense.
So much sense.
And when you're in it, it doesn't always make so much sense. So there is this deep surrender and
Mm.
trusting
Yes.
that as you're in the process. So, what do you share with clients who are like in the thick of these life moments that they're like, for me, I always knew like it felt icky. It didn't feel like my purpose, felt like where I needed to be at the moment in time. And I always knew there was something big and important I came here to do ever since I was a little kid. I always had that inner knowing. And that helped get me through those icky stages, is this just deep, deep knowing that for some reason this is connected. I couldn't quite explain it. I just knew. So for clients who are like in the thick of it, what do you tell them? How do you guide them?
So it's not an earthly level. So it's not a genie
Mm.
thing. It comes
Totally.
from channel. It comes from God. And so what comes in the messages, what comes in from their departed loved ones, from angels, from
Mm.
Mother Mary is what they need.
Yeah.
Maybe not what they want, but it's what they
Mm.
need. And it's
Mhm.
the guidepost and things that are going to help them to navigate through those sticky situations. So each woman, each person is different.
Mm.
I
Mm.
work with a couple who I just adore. And this is their third coaching package with me because she had such high amount of trauma in her early life. Their marriage was like almost apart. And after one round of coaching them, of being able to lean in and do together and separate sessions, healing, what she received was, she said in her words, were like, I haven't done this much work in all the years of therapy in these 6 sections that I did with you. Like, I am a different person now. And so we're on this continuum because she's in agreement. She's in agreement with what God is showing her, and she's leaning in. She's not fighting it. And she's being able to go further with herself than she thought possible.
Mm.
And so it could look like it is time to leave your job. And we might spend time around what that might look like or feel like. And I might not say those words directly, but the sense of it will come through in the delivery of what God is saying. And they're like, and it's they come up and it's their idea because they have free will. So it's never prediction, it's never heavy, but it's always empowering.
Mm. Beautiful.
They
Oh.
keep putting this gold around you, like, I wanna say like Egyptian gold, but it's like a solid, like, headpiece. I don't know what this is, but they're adorning you, and I love that.
I will receive
Yeah.
that.
You're being adorned with gold, and gold is so holy and sacred and healing on so many
Mm.
levels.
It truly is. As was this conversation.
Mm,
We could go on for hours and hours. It is such a delight to be in your presence. And for those of you who can't see Jeannie, she glows and she's
mhm,
just this beautiful
mm.
angelic presence and
I'm
truly an
so
earth
for you.
angel. Mm.
Thank you so much, Katie. Thank you for having me, and yeah, if anybody wants to come hang out, I'm on Instagram, Jeannie Street Medium. My website is jeanniestreet.com. All links are there. We have a nice, beautiful Work Your Light guide. You can come and get that. And if you're interested in the mastery, you can send me a DM on Instagram and I will set up a call with you.
Beautiful. And we'll put
Mm,
in all the ways to connect with Jeannie on
thank
the
you.
show notes too. In case you're driving and don't have a pen with you, just check out the show notes. And as we close out, do you have any parting words that are on your mind, on your heart, that you
Mhm.
feel called to close our time together with?
I I really am feeling like I want to congratulate you. I feel like this is all about you right now, which I love. I feel like what your team, your guides, and your angels are showing is like you are sparkly and glowy, and the work that you're doing is really like touching upon women in a profound way. So the women that are listening, the people that are tuning in today, know that you were led here. You were brought here by your angels and your guides and your departed loved ones. Know that the signs are all around you, and that if it feels like you're like tingly or on fire or like lifted up, definitely start getting into Katie's programs and start leaning in and going further because don't take that for granted. That is so yummy and so good. That is your calling card from heaven.
Oh, so beautiful. Thank you,
Thank you.
thank you,
Thank you.
thank you.
Mm.
Deep bow of gratitude to
Yes, you
you
too.
and your team of light
Mm.
for bringing so much
Thank you.
wisdom to us today. Mwah.
Love you.
Love you too. Bye. I'm grateful for your presence on this remarkable and captivating journey today. Together, we've delved into the realms of limitless possibilities and unlocked the secrets of our true selves. A mystical life is not a mere coincidence. It's a thrilling adventure that you actively shape with intention and passion. Remember, when you follow your light, you not only illuminate your own path, but you also radiate light to the world around you. The world eagerly awaits the magic you have to offer. Follow your light and let it guide you to incredible heights.